Hello. Hi, how are you? So, I am here to tell a ghost story. Um, because it is 12:39 a.m. I have a midterm due in 24 hours, and I'm procrastinating, and it's spooky. I saw someone at a Sheets. I went to Sheets to get coffee, and the person at the Sheets scared me. So I thought I would share this story. So ever since I was a little kid, I was always very, 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 very afraid of the paranormal. I grew up Catholic. I thought all those things were the devil's work and terrible. I remember being at Girl Scout camp, and the girls wanted to do light as a feather, stiff as a board, and I was like, no fucking way. That's a one-way ticket to hell, if I ever seen one. And I was very superstitious, even though, I still believed in spirits and ghosts because, the Bible does and all that garbage. And I would hold my breath going past graveyards. I would be very careful, usual American superstition things, like saying things into a mirror. I still won't even say stuff into a mirror in the dark. That stuff freaks me out. Still. But so eventually, as I got older, I learned to appreciate it. I went through a couple of things in my life that were kind of wacky. Um, like people close to me died of terrible causes, and having to go to the funerals, I kind of became numb to the real life factor of what is scary about that stuff. And so the more philosophical and metaphysical ideas of the paranormal and parapsychology became very interesting to me because I'm no longer scared, so I can look into this, and I just never stopped. And but I was never a believer. I was never yeah, yeah, ghosts are real. Cause I personally have not had a ghost experience at all. I've never seen a ghost. I don't wanna I'm scared to say that because it's late and I'm anxious and I'm scared I'm gonna see ghosts now. But I've never had like a ghost experience. And I was pretty convinced for a long time, even when I started being interested in the paranormal, that ghosts, no way. Like I think it's interesting how we perceive things, how people experience different realities. As someone who has gone through and suffers from reoccurrent, reoccurring um, psychotic episodes, seeing things, hearing things. I know what it's like to not feel like your reality is accurate, if you know what I mean. When people see ghosts and they're like, that's not supposed to be real. Um, so I always sympathized with the fact when people were like, I believe in ghosts. I'd be like, that's good for you. I think it's interesting that you do. But now I am a full believer. And I have a little bit of a different take than people usually do because people are like, oh, okay, people die and then their consciousness is still sticking around and doing things. Um, explanation. So, like I've said before, I've never seen a ghost. I've never had an experience like that. I've seen really weird animals, but that's not something too insane. Um, it does freak me out, but it's nothing like what I'm about to tell you. So, this was when I was a sophomore in college. I wasn't too about into the paranormal as I am now. Um Now I look into it. I listen to all these podcasts, I read stories, I read articles, I have a ton of old VHS tapes of weird parapsychology stuff that's Catholic based, which is cool cuz they're the Lord did it and it's something really scary and it's freaky. But so, my only paranormal experience that I will attest was 100% real. I saw the Hat Man, which I didn't even know at the time that there was one of that was a thing. So, yeah, I was a sophomore in college. And I've had sleep paralysis before because I've always had trouble sleeping my entire life. And I like figured out what sleep paralysis was, like how to recognize it, how to just like ignore it until you either eventually wake up unparalyzed or just fall back asleep. So I like literally since I was like 7. So like done and done all that. I know what sleep paralysis is. I was in my room going to bed and I felt very safe. It was college housing. It was new, rebuilt. Like I didn't feel like it was haunted or anything. And I at the time, like I said, I wasn't really convinced on the whole like things being haunted. Like it's fun to be scared, so sometimes I would like buy into the like local mythology and stuff like that because it's fun and I live in like one of the oldest cities in America. But oldest cities, excuse me, established post colonization is what I'm trying to say. Um, and yes, 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 yes. I was just like doing my studies, doing my thing, working my job, and I went to bed. And I usually wake up a couple of times during the night. Um, Not anymore because I'm on Prozocin and it kind of like keeps me asleep somehow. I don't really know how. But I was sleeping and my eyes shot open and I was looking towards my wall this way with like the wall was like this close to my face and I was like there's someone sitting next to me on my bed. Like I could move. Like I know that I remember I like turned my head and like opened my eye and I was like, what? And the compression that I was feeling wasn't on my chest. I wasn't really feeling any compression on my body. I felt a divot in my bed. So I, being me, because I'm an idiot, I should have just went back to bed and then I wouldn't be having this conversation. I turned around and I looked and there was a black figure that wasn't like solid. Like it was staticky. Like if you were to be able to make a person out of dry ice but be pitch fucking black, that's what this person looked like. And he was wearing a hat. He was wearing a brimmed hat. And I like I realized it wasn't sleep paralysis because I was moving. I wasn't dreaming. Um, and I I started screaming at the top of my lungs, and it's the I couldn't see it because it was pitch black, and this was in the middle of the night with blinds in my room, and it's dark, and this I can see this person, this figure, because he is like assuming they call it the Hat Man, so he assuming you know, what am I saying? He was so dark, like Vanta Black dark, that he stood out in the rest of the room that was unlit. Like, it was exactly like that. And it fucking terrified me. And I couldn't see his face because it's all just pitch black. But I could tell that I got this overwhelming feeling that this presence was not here to be my friend or here to kiki, here to like protect me, like oh my god it's my guardian angel. Like I felt the most fear, and even there was like a a telepathic connection that even though I couldn't see his face, he had the most disgusting smile. Like he was grimacing at me with his brain. Like I could tell that that was what he was trying to give off, but he didn't have a face, just entirely black, but he did have a hat. And so I was like, I screamed at the top of my lungs. I started screaming. I turned right into my pillow and I started screaming and I was yelling help and I was kicking. And eventually I just fell back asleep, which was so fucking weird. Like, who just is screaming at the top of their lungs and it, like, fell back asleep? out of nowhere. So the next day, I was really, really shaken up about it, and I was kind of convinced that someone, like, maybe broke into my apartment and was, like that weird, like, kind of stalker situation where, like, the stalker doesn't think they're a stalker and they think they're, like, doing you a favor by, like, watching you sleep. Twilight shit, you know what I mean? And so that evening, I asked my roommates, I was like, did you hear me screaming last night? Like, there was someone in my room. And, like, two of them who lived on the other side of the apartment were like, no, we didn't hear you. But my one roommate was like, I heard a girl screaming. And I was like, around what time? Because I remember the time was around like 2 in the morning or so. And it was at the same time. She heard me screaming. She heard me yelling because there was a fucking man in my room. And I was like, that was nuts. So I started sleeping at my boyfriend at the time's house. Just for a little bit. I was kind of more scared of his house because his room was big and dark. And my room was very, very teeny. It's easier to sleep in teeny rooms than it is big rooms that are dark because more room for like monsters. But so I kind of forgot about it. I was like, I'm over it. You know what? Whatever. Like, I guess that happens. Like, maybe I'm just crazy. Like, I know that I have psychotic episodes, so I was like, maybe I just had, like, a brief period of psychosis for no fucking reason in the middle of the night that woke me up. Um, but, so, I always thought it was weird that he was wearing a hat. This shadow person. Because I was like, why the fuck was he wearing a hat? Like, what does he need a hat for? And I thought that it was just, like, my imagination being weird. Like, eventually I started to be like, oh, like, my eyes were playing tricks on me. Like, that's not that big of a deal. Um, I'm sure this happens to everyone. People have sleep paralysis all the time. And, like, I was like, well, I could move, but it was probably sleep paralysis. Like, I was trying to just, like, say whatever would help me sleep at night. And so eventually, I was going through a very, very rough time, and I was staying with my parents, and I would lay on their couch all day and watch Netflix. Um, and this is when I was going through terrible things, so I wanted to look into the paranormal because it doesn't really apply to everyday life. Like, you don't have to think about taxes, you don't have to think about breakups, you don't have to think about anything. You think about, holy shit, there's ghosts and stuff like that. So, I'm like picking through these documentaries on like HBO and like Amazon Prime and just like trying to find something because I also had such a hard time sleeping um in general just because I was going through shit living with my parents, you know. It's hard to sleep when you're severely anxious and depressed and stuff like that. So I was trying to just lay on the couch and like chill out and find something to listen to and relax to. And there was this anthology documentary about people who have had paranormal experiences. It might have been called like I Survived the Paranormal or something like that, but I feel like there was a show like that that's not what I'm talking about. But so they had an episode about people seeing shadow figures, and people were like the Hat Man, the Hat Man, the Hat Man, or like, and he has like two backup people that aren't wearing hats. They're just shadow people, but the person is the Hat Man. And I was like, what? Like, I don't know if you can tell right now. Like, you see how fidgety I am? I'm anxious talking about this because I'm not fucking with this. Um, I'm Bachelor of Science at the moment. Soon I'm gonna get my PhD. But Bachelor of Science, very rational thinking, like not really open to the possibility of anything supernatural unless it's for fun. But this shook me to my fucking core. Like I was like, other people have had this experience and it was like as scary as mine. Like that's fucking terrifying. Like the fact that people have seen this exact same man. I remember thinking there was like that dumb creepy pasta where there was like, have you seen this man? And it was like it turned out to be like an experiment for someone's at school. I don't know if I believe that. Like I think someone just made it up. But I, without knowing a single thing about these entities, I saw it. And I had a similar experience to so many other people where this man in a hat who you cannot see is smiling at you. And so eventually I started getting more into like looking things up because I totally believe in this now, because now I'm like, what? Like, are you fucking kidding me? So that preoccupies a lot of my time. I look up stuff like that all the time. But here is my theory, if you would like to know. Um, so the Philadelphia experiment, um, they made a movie about it. I've never seen it. I only know it from Ashley Flowers' Parcast podcast um, about supernatural stuff. But so Albert Einstein had this theory that there was a set number of equations that can manipulate um, like the fabric of reality, like space and time and stuff like that. I believe in like interdimensional theories. I think that I like string theory, um, just like very physics, like heavy physics. Um, I believe there are multiple dimensions and different realities, and so what I think. Oh, by the way, sorry, off track. The Philadelphia experiment, they believe that the United States government figured out these equations, possibly, to manipulate the fabric of, like, reality, space time, material, matter, as one would. Um, and I was like, oh my gosh, it would make so much sense if these three shadow people, or shadow beings, or whatever, are from another dimension or reality or somewhere in space, it could be aliens, that have figured out these equations as well. Not just like the scientists in the Philadelphia experiment. Um, and they know how to manipulate between dimensions. I probably sound fucking insane because I am, but I am like convinced that there are other dimensions where people's sole purpose is to like harm, I guess. I don't even know if I want to say harm, but just like the energy is overall negative. Like in our society, I say we live on like a pretty apathetic plane. Like no one really wants to hurt you or do nice things for you. Like you're you, focus on yourself, you know what I mean? But maybe where these people are coming from are people who are from somewhere that has a much more negative type of society, or maybe we're lab rats. And I mean, if they had figured out the equations to manipulate everything, they're probably way more intelligent, way more technologically advanced, and we are plebeians. I would say even less than plebeians. We are bugs, and they are coming to look at the funny bugs. It's like the idea of demons like isn't a thought in my head. I'm thinking more like, bro, there's some physics involved in this. But that is my experience with the paranormal. I'm trying to think if I've had any other feelings since then. Um well, I could also share this as a little tidbit. You can stop here if you just came for the shadow people. But so back I will back when I would partake in tomfoolery is what I would say. As in alter my consciousness, if you know what I'm saying. Um, Back in those days. My tattoo artist believes that there are like um interdimensional gatekeepers who try to like keep you from figuring out um like the different fabrics of reality and all that jazz. And I remember when she told me that the first time, I was like, okay, tinfoil hat. But one time when I had an altered state of consciousness, she told me that she could tell if people there were these beings called gatekeepers. If I already said that, I'm losing my mind. But these people would like stop you from experiencing something that could make you understand like a higher form of physics, or like something about their society that they don't want us to know. And they are like, they look like regular people, but they kind of like show up out of nowhere and are there to keep you in line. And I was always like, that's like the story she told me. I was like, that's fucking nuts. But I was like, do I really like, can I buy into that? Because like a lot of people are so weird. But I was um in an altered state, and I was just sitting, just minding my own business, and I started hanging out with this person who I like did not know very well, but I wanted to, like, they were friends with my friends, so I would always be involved, and we would always partake in tomfoolery together, like this group. So like it wasn't just me and this person alone, but every time I looked at that person while in an altered state, they were like that, like not trying to freak me out, like that's just what they were doing. And I was always like, what the fuck is going on? And then there was like one time where I was just kind of like minding my own business and like watching the TV, and I look over and this person is like, for an unbelievably long amount of time. And I was like, okay, I kind of think I know where my tattoo lady is coming from when she says that she has met these things, because that was terrifying. And it was probably because, you know, altered state of consciousness. Um, but like, is that in itself like parapsychology? Like, the way I described it when I wrote it down was that um, it felt like a psychological attack. Um, if you're familiar with like old hermetic art order shit, like from the 1920s and stuff, like you know what I'm talking about when I say psychological attack. Like someone is trying to harm you and your psyche by like giving you these emotions. And that's what I felt happened. But it's like so strange because that person's my friend, right? Or like, are they? Or are they just here to keep me in line because I have some ideas about what's going on? But I swear to God to you, I am normal. I am on a lot of meds for my brain things. So usually I'm in a right state of mind. But this stuff, I swear to God, I am kind of convinced. Like if people asked me what religion I was, I would explain this. And then I would not. I would be like, and I don't want to fucking talk about it because I'm terrified. So you know what I do? I stay up all night and I read The River Between, because I have a midterm due on it. On a lot of books actually, but I need to read this one because I kind of glazed over it because it's about circumcision. And it's circumcision. But yeah. That's my paranormal experience. I hope you dug it. See ya.